didn't feel like there was much going on in education up until we start talking about it.
I know. And then we were surfacing more and more and more that's going on and
You
happening
get the impression
all
the
around us.
election's really starting to heat up.
Yeah, and it's getting it. I think this last week, and I think our coming weeks are all going to be about the sort of political toing and throwing and some of the pot shots that are being aimed back and forth between the parties in the education space as well. Because when we caught up off camera, we were initially going, so what's happened this week? Rah, 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 rah. And then of course it sort of struck us that there was a lot going on, a lot of announcements, a lot of back and forth. We had scrutiny week, a lot that is being said. And actually, there's a little bit about what isn't being said as well, which we'll come back to a bit later on this morning. But one of the things we're going to talk about first up is this sort of the way that this comment that Ginny Anderson made. I think it was at an APPA conference. There was a video recording where she made a statement about testing and the desire to not focus on testing in primary schools. And that seems to have got a life of its own. I mean, this is more your domain than mine. Liam, what's your take on what's happening here?
Yeah, well, my understanding, I wasn't there. I'm not in Auckland and I'm not a principal, and therefore I was disqualified from attending. Was that at some point they were talking about what I understand to be the kind of national standards debate from when you had the key government. And so Labor said that they kind of didn't agree with kind of mandated testing, and which I was assumed was in the context of the kind of SMART tool. Twice a year, you've got students within 7 days of each other sitting a test. That kind of like high stakes testing that evidence is very clear. It doesn't help teaching and learning.
And very much a summative assessment rather than those sort of formative stuff that we've always valued in terms of PAT and EASTL and ASTL testing.
Yeah, and so if I was in the crowd, I would have taken a lot of heart from the fact that we had a potential change of government coming in that was going to kind of remove that kind of national standards, national testing view. But then what we saw happen afterwards was it just like explode into this discussion of Labor doesn't back any testing. And for the life of me, I don't even know what it means, because I could imagine all of these underground teachers secretly testing their kids while the oppressive Labor government comes in and kind of police checks that there's no testing going on. And there were two parts that kind of stood out for me in it. One was just that they kind of don't support testing. It's just a bit of a nonsense statement. But like the big part was like how weak the journalism in the Stuff article was around critiquing what Labor did and didn't mean by that statement, because off the back of that article, we have just seen this barrage of like social media tiles of
from across ACT and across national, and that's all out. They no standards for our children, no understanding of what's going on in the classroom, and they've sort of like taken a kernel and blown it right up, haven't they?
I was on the football field yesterday morning, and one of the parents comes up to me and goes, "Oh, you would have heard about this thing around Labor not supporting any testing." And I was like, yeah, I did see that. And then I was always interested. I was like, so what do you think about that? And he goes, well, I don't know how it would work. Like, do they mean that they wouldn't be able to test kids on their like multiplication anymore? Kind of the point. He goes, yeah, I've read it and it didn't really pass the sniff test, but I haven't heard anything from Labor otherwise. And I just thought, in the lead up to this election, if you want to lie or misrepresent the truth, you are going to get a couple of days head start to kind of control the narrative. And on one hand, I get that's how it works, but also I'm a bit kind of saddened that people have to kind of distort,
and that journalism isn't cutting through this. Because I mean we sort of I guess we've grown to expect, not that I particularly enjoy, but we've grown to expect the social media direct messaging stuff, like just spreading like absolutely like fire just across the internet. But what I find interesting is it's like as soon as you follow anything political, you seem to get fed all of the party's political tile. It doesn't matter which way you tend to lean. So you tend to get a good sense of what's happening. And I do think there's an interesting strategy at play on the National Party, and less so, but also on the ACT front, where clearly they're getting instruction to all push out the same boomer tiles and reels at the same time, to the
Is
point where I'm
rheumatology
starting
the
to think
official
that,
word?
I don't know, did you make that up? I use it. You
Yeah, I
used it
did.
once. I now use it like it's an official tile. What we mean when we say boomer tiles is that coloured background, really big font, particularly on Facebook. And Liam once referred to them as boomer tiles, and they have ever since been known as boomer tiles on my head. But National use that very effectively. So if there is any message they want to get across, say it's a new policy, or if they want to try and spread what feels a bit like misinformation around, say, Ginny's statement at that APPA event, they will absolutely flood social media with those boomer tiles, or self-recorded reels is the other thing that they've been trained up to do. And I do think we could see more of that from the other side. I mean, maybe people don't agree with me. Maybe it isn't a matter of fighting fire with fire. I do think there's space for Labor and Greens, if they want to have a fair sort of fight on their hands. They need to also be employing that tactic of sort of, everyone having similar statements and consistent messaging. And because I felt like the social media space was casting all of this sort of misinformation. As you said, the journalists weren't doing their job particularly well, and we weren't seeing it absolutely sort of picked apart through journalists. So in that case, you really need the Labor and the Greens actually being just as good, just as quick at firing back. I don't want to encourage stupid tit for tat behavior online, but it's frustrating when it feels like one side does it and maybe the other doesn't. And this is all in the interest of us having proper cross-party positioning and debate. This is not saying that I want no National ACT messaging and I want all Labor Green messaging. It's like, I just want them both to be, you know, pitched at a similar level so that we can be ensured that the whole public actually has all of the positions and all of the information. And yeah, it's interesting times we're living in. And it was interesting this week that we had Scrutiny Week happening.
Oh,
And we
okay,
were,
sorry. Just before we go
sorry,
into there, for learning on tech, we should totally
yes,
get some type of a social media specialists to
yeah,
talk about actually how do you deal with these situations where there's a kind of misinformation? Like, do you
absolutely.
come back with a full-throated narrative, or do you just
Yeah.
kind of let
Or
it
do you
die?
ignore it and take
Yeah.
the high ground,
Hey,
and,
and then just the last thing. The other thing that I thought was interesting in that Stuff article was the last third of it. It was kind of critical of the fact that Ginny put out a kind of positioning paper on Substack.
yeah,
And I thought, is that like a fight between kind of traditional media and new media? Because I thought it was quite savvy around Ginny jumping onto something like Substack and sharing her kind of thinking through there.
yeah,
But I don't know if that's just because we're using Substack a lot and have found it a really good platform to kind of grow and communicate with people.
yeah. Are we
Mm,
are we native Substack users? I think we might be.
so,
And yeah, but also there was that real bit of information that came out, and I don't. It's interesting. Has it been picked up a lot? Maybe it has, about the learning first revelation. So out of that came out of Scrutiny Week, I believe that it had been in some papers that had been with the Waitangi Tribunal case as well, and it was very much exposed that that Australians were involved. Learning First was involved with the writing of the curriculum. And what was the statement in one of the articles? Winning hearts and trying to tell the minister how to win the hearts of minds of New
it's very
Zealanders.
gross that you
Yeah,
would bring in an overseas company to
yeah,
intentionally manipulate people's kind of feelings towards
yeah,
correctly standardized testing. But one of the phrases I thought was crack up through the week was this idea of like popping over to the Gold Coast for a flat white and handing over a multi-million-dollar contract. And the rationale from the Ministry of Education as to why it didn't have to go out to a formal tender was that they already were working with Learning First. And I'll tell you what, I think that needs a huge amount of scrutiny. For the
yeah,
life of me, I have no idea why you having a contract with them at one place means that therefore you do not need to go through
yeah.
any type of procurement process.
It's another thing that doesn't pass the sniff test, Liam.
No,
Doesn't
that's
pass the
right.
sniff test.
Also, in the national government's own procurement rules, they do talk about the importance of needing to favour going with kind of New Zealand contractors and
Yeah.
all that, because it obviously creates work and taxable income here in New Zealand. Um, and so the only way maybe they could get around this was by avoiding any type of procurement process, getting your flat white and going sitting on the beach to catch up with
But
Ben Jessamine.
this doesn't this come back to the stuff that Claire Coleman has talked about in the past? And I know she's spoken to the media about this. We've got so much evidence of curriculum writers that were already in the ministry. Like, we had teams and teams of subject experts and curriculum writers who were already engaged with writing the curriculum. Like, we had our Bruce and Today's and a whole range of people that were involved in Te Makai Aho. Like, the fact that not only have they gone through sort of questionable lack of process to engage new curriculum writers, we also shouldn't forget the fact that we had teams of curriculum writers already well and truly engaged and partway along the pathway. So this is not just a matter of terrible process, lack of process, employing someone offshore to write basically what's an important primary curriculum. We can't forget that they also got rid of and cleared the decks in terms of the skills and the talents and the local expertise who were already well along the way in writing this new curriculum.
But I think it does show that
Unforgivable.
it does show that our country's curriculum writers weren't capable of delivering this type of curriculum.
Yeah.
Because to do this type of curriculum, you would have to deliver something that's kind of Eurocentric. You would
Yeah.
have to do something that was not just knowledge first, it was kind of anti-key competencies. And it would have to be put through the lens of how do we design something that has got national testing and high stakes assessment at the forefront of it. And I tell you what, they probably didn't have New Zealand curriculum writers that would be prepared to do that stuff,
No.
which is why they have had to go over to the likes of Australia and the UK, and why Elizabeth Rata and Catherine Law are quite a kind of small group of academics capable of being able to craft a narrative like that.
Yeah.
The other bit that's come out about Ben Jessamine was that Erica said during Scrutiny Week was that she couldn't remember if she had had a coffee. Which to me means that the flat whites
You
over
should
in
get a
Australia,
health check.
they're not
Yeah.
excellent flat whites, they're not bad flat whites, they're just kind of medium because she couldn't remember whether or not she had had them. But don't worry, there are text messages that have come out from an OIA that clearly show that, yes, she was interested in catching up with
Yeah.
Ben.
Yeah. So help to jog your memory a little bit, maybe.
But also, given the way that they're quite keen to distort the truth, maybe
Yeah.
she said that she couldn't remember because the only coffee she remembered was a cappuccino, and because it was a flat white, she felt comfortable going, "Well, I'm not sure."
Oh dear, that's quite entertaining. Actually, on the entertaining front, can you tell me about? You were telling me a story about someone who is undertaking protest via recorder. What was
Okay,
that about, Liam?
when you start talking like that, I don't know if you're off script, or if you're talking about some of the stuff that we've got. Um, so, like, we were talking about it in that kind of conversation around how in opposition people do different things, and some of them are quite quirky to get noticed. But like to also kind of like shout out to those people that are quite happy to put their kind of head above the parapet and do try to get a bit of notice, because we've got Joe Patrick was in a press release this week because she has committed to going and playing the recorder outside of Erica Stanford's electorate office once a week in protest. And my favourite part is that she's singing "We Shall Overcome." Uh, and you mentioned though that you're only just down the road, and so
Yeah,
imperative that you do pop along
there might be
one
an
Tuesday morning.
AEC live stream opportunity in the very near future. I can feel it.
Yeah, but also, I mean, a huge shout out to Joe, and I
Yeah,
would love to see kind of other examples of kind of people coming to the fore to putting a bit of kind of awe in the water of direction of education policy right now.
yeah,
Because there is something I also quite like about the fact that it is the recorder as well,
yeah,
because that was a
yeah.
part
No,
of
that's
the
beautiful.
Primary Teachers Collective Agreement campaign.
Yeah.
It was also a part in reference to these kind of like music kits.
These yeah,
Where we
amazing
have like
packages that are gonna turn
uh,
them all of our young people into musicians.
yeah, but they have also done it off the back of removing the restorative practice budget as well, which I thought was kind of like ironic that we're going to kind of allow kids to better relate to one another by getting them around a fire pit and playing the
Yeah,
recorder.
just work
Um,
through it with
all
tune
boom
too.
whackers.
Yeah. Three blind mice. It's saved many a situation. Gosh, we live in interesting times, don't we? But more seriously, I think I've earlier this week I was lucky enough to be on the panel on RNZ, and I've been thinking was actually recalling back to those very kinds of people that Joe Patrick sort of represents, in the sense that, there's an irony that we're getting this real push towards standardization and locking down the curriculum, and an overcrowded curriculum that just, and we heard those rumbles at the ITE around 80% bloody direct instruction being the way to go. And it's like, what the holy heck? What are you going on about? If we were to stop any person our age, in their, 30s, 40s, 50s and beyond, if you were to recall your favorite learning experience, or your favorite teacher, or that moment in primary school or secondary school that has stuck with you, and maybe, was the moment that, decided what you were going to become or what you were interested in doing, I bet it wasn't direct instruction in a lockdown curriculum. It was those creative teachers. It was those teachers that were sort of like rule breakers and had fun in the classroom, or took you out of the classroom, or, were slightly mad and stood on their desk and did all sorts of crazy things. So, I mean, I guess one of the things I think we could do and need to do, because this is not about Labour versus National or anything. It's about what is it that we want for our education system. And surely what we want is, yes, nothing wrong with having a really clear curriculum, threshold concepts and skills, that, knowledge balanced with competencies. But we want passionate, engaged, creative teachers that have the freedom and the trust to do what is best for their young people, and actually engages their young people and entertains them, and, you know, sharing their passions. And I just don't see that in the reforms at the moment. Do you?
Um, no, and I think about that through the eyes of who are the people that we're going to be recruiting. Like,
Yeah.
uh, say we're in for another 3 years of this nonsense, and actually what it looks like to be a teacher is really well defined as somebody who just reads off
Yeah.
scripts in classrooms. You've got to think about what are the young people looking at that type of environment and questioning whether or not they would like to be an educator.
Yeah.
Um, but putting out that challenge, I think, is really good. When I think about my one, I had this guy Bruce McCorkindale during
That's a great name.
yeah during third and fourth form, that ages me, and he would take us for economics and accounting. And there were kind of two things that stood out for him along the lines you're talking about. Was it when I got to high school, I realised everybody called him Corky,
Yeah.
which for me was like grossly inappropriate because that's a teacher. But when I asked him, does it worry him if people call him Corky? And his response was I don't mind what people call me, provided they say it with respect.
Yeah.
And that was one of those out-shattering moments where actually this idea of like formality and tradition actually has to come second to a teacher being able to build a relationship with kids. And he
Absolutely.
had kind of clicked onto this idea that Corky was like a fun way of
Yeah.
connecting with the kids. And
Yeah. And he could
um,
still be authoritative. You don't need to be
yeah,
authoritarian. You know what I mean? Like, when you're respected and liked, you get so much out of young people. Get so
yeah.
much out of kids.
The other thing he did was he used to like create songs to help us remember accounting formulas. Um, and so definitely not going to sing it, but I still remember it. Um, but it was along the lines of the gross profit rate is gross profit over sales, and the net profit rate is net profit over sales. The three expense percentages are over sales too, but for markup, it's cost of goods sold that you use. And so we got to
Yeah, you have got it locked in for life.
school cert, and right before the exam, all of the all of the students are kind of like milling out the front, waiting for it.
Mumbling
And
and singing to
and
themselves.
Corky jumps out of his car with his guitar, and he's running over to us and stuff. And he's like, quickly, quickly, everybody gather around. He's like, gross profit, mate. It's gross profit over sounds, taking us through all of the performance right before exams.
Yeah. I guess you could argue that is a beautiful example of direct instruction.
That's right. Yeah,
If that's what we mean by directors, maybe that's why they want all the music kits in classrooms. Maybe
that's right.
it's not actually about the kids. It's about the teachers singing all of their lessons to the young people. But seriously, one thing that has struck me this week, like I feel like we go through periods of dark where we're always looking around going, oh my goodness, this, oh my goodness that, the direction of travel we're going with the standardization of the curriculum and the focus on testing through the SMART tool. I think that we're starting to get that sense of, oh my goodness, where are we going in the secondary space? Like, I think the development of curriculum is one thing. I think the thing that people are worried about, that it's going to turn into, lockdown mandated whole subject via the assessment and the high stakes assessment. So there's real worry around all of that. And then we've seen our colleagues across on the Medical Council and the Nurses Council, similar to we've seen in the Teaching Council, losing all of those voted members. It feels like the membership has been wiped out, that representation has been wiped out, and that they're starting to get appointed people. So whilst there are these dark things happening across education and actually happening across health as well, there's also some real pockets of light. And this is me going a bit off script, because this is one thing that I do want to talk about. So this week, I was lucky enough to have one of my ex-students from when I was teacher at Hobson Ballpoint Secondary School, a young woman, Nikita, was in my class several years in a row because we were a brand new school. So it wasn't unusual that you had a student more than once. She has gone on to establish, so she's got a disability. She has a thing with her connective tissue is means that she's often wheelchair bound. And so she has navigated her way through university as a disabled student and recognised that there wasn't representational support for people like her. And so she has gone on to found and is now the co-president of the National Disabled Students Association. Nikita and Eloise are the co-presidents of that association. And they came in to see me with Namish, who is the stunning president of the Auckland University Students Association. So I had these three kick-ass young people sitting in my boardroom, and they had come in to see me because they're deeply, deeply concerned. Like we are seeing, there's a whole lot of reforms happening in the university space that is impacting our most at-risk students. So there is a lot of flexibility, there's a lot of resourcing and a lot of supports that in recent months have been completely kiboshed and removed. So that means that for our most at-risk students, so our disabled students, our neurodivergent students, even some of our minority groups like ESOL learners and those sort of things, a lot of their resourcing and supports are being removed, and it feels like systematically removed in the tertiary space. But they had gone further than that. The reason they wanted to come in and meet with me is because they were also becoming really aware of what was happening in the secondary schooling space, and potentially what was going to be the impact of these changes with the removal of NCA and the introduction of a far more locked down, standardized senior assessment. And these incredibly intelligent young people could see what impact was going to be in terms of upstream. So they were sort of like going, oh my God, like this is happening with our young people and, the people that we serve and support at university. But we're also deeply concerned about the changes that we're hearing about in the secondary space, because they have already joined the dots. Yep. They can already see that not only are these these people going to be struggling in university, but they're going to be struggling to get into university if they don't have access to an inclusive, flexible, supportive curriculum and assessment process and opportunities. And, this might all sound really dark, but do you know what I came away with from the end of that meeting? So that was Friday morning. I came away filled with hope. I just went, oh my goodness. We've got these incredible young people that, we're going to see how we can support them through AEC. And I've got a whole lot of other networks that I'm going to be supporting them with in terms of getting their information into like the Senko networks and the careers and planning networks and the counselling sort of networks. But there's a whole lot of work that we've sort of committed to doing together moving forward. But it gave me hope that actually there are so many young people that get it, that are not going to put up with, having a system that isn't serving the most at risk. They are so socially just and so focused on the needs of people who haven't had the supports that they potentially have had. And they're looking at how they can systematically build in supports for those that need it. So I was I sort of went on a roller coaster ride in the hour that I sat down with them, where I was devastated about what I was hearing in terms of the systematic removal of supports. And then I was so bloomin' heartened that we have these activist young people that care about, so many people in their community and are willing to fight for the right thing. And I don't know, it just really heartened me and it excited me for what we can do in our community in terms of the Aotearoa Educators Collective. But it also reminded me that actually in every single classroom around the country, a teacher can be an activist, a teacher can be the protector of social justice. And actually, we are the person, and can I give a shout out to Pride Week and the fact that there was a stat that Emily Wrights put out earlier in the week, where she talked about the fact that the risk of suicide can be reduced by 40% for LGBTQI youth if they just have one adult who cares about them. And in my mind, all of this has been joining up dots. I am so privileged that I could be that person for Nikita and can help her now. I'm so excited that all of the people at university have people like Nikita and Eloise and Namish in their court. But it came back to this idea that each and every teacher, learning support assistant, Senko in our country, counsellor, can be that person. They can be that support person for whatever happens at a national level. We have a responsibility and an opportunity to make sure that they only experience what is right for them.
That is such a cool way to bring us to a close. I love that sense of morals-driven leadership is something that
Yes.
never
I mean,
been
it comes
before.
back to well-beings and the disobedient teacher and all the rest of it. I won't stop fighting and shouting about national direction of travel. But at the end of the day, we hold such incredible power and such incredible privilege as educators to do the right thing regardless.
Cool. Hey, Claire, we're going to have
Quite
to wrap it up
seriously.
here.
Yeah.
But we will ask people, because I think we're keen to kind of grow those creative teacher tiles. And so
Yes.
we will put some type of a collection method into the Facebook group for people to be able
Yeah.
to
Maybe
submit
we can
those.
even send out a bit of a Google form. Let's push out a Google form through our Substack and
Yeah.
emails and gather in some of those good news stories about the people you remember, the teachers that made the difference, because we're going to have to bloody hold tight to that stuff.
Yeah. And then we can turn them into those tiles that you've named boomer tiles and not me.
Ours are boom boom tiles. They're better than boomer tiles.
Hey, have a good week and we'll catch up with you later.
Awesome. Happy week 10, people. See you later.
Yeah.